Anyway, we're going to talk about the social part of being Asian American now. This video is going to be long. I'll probably make more parts about being Asian American. But, yeah, so I think I really hated being Asian growing up. There was a period of my life where I just rejected all Asian culture. I was like, no, fuck this dim sum. Fuck speaking Cantonese. Fuck going to Chinese New Year. I want to be a normal American. I don't want to be Asian American. I just want to be American. And by forcing me to do all this Asian stuff, Mom, you're othering me. And I don't want to be I just want to be like all the other kids and like just not do this shit. And that's interesting. I think I've moved past that. I'm happy with my culture. I know why it's important. I think Asian food is the best type of food now. But yeah, I think it's interesting to think why I thought that, you know. I think a large part of it has to do with media. And I'm not blaming media or anything. I don't think the media has an agenda to make Asian people hate themselves. It's just when you see like your Drake and Josh and your iCarly and you're like all this stuff where everyone is white and everyone's having a certain experience that I never got to experience. Like I never had the Drake and Josh and iCarly make it seem like white people are always having like a really fun, kooky ass time. And I didn't see that. So I was like, oh, it must be because I'm Asian American. Fuck being Asian American. I want to be like Drake and Josh. I want to be like all these TV shows I'm seeing where they seem to be like having a really good time and not having to go to prep school and all this other boring shit that I hate doing, you know? And, you know, when you're 10, you just want to fit in with other kids. You don't want to stand out. You just want to be a kid and fit in with everyone and be normal. And that's what I wanted to. Yeah, and being Asian American was like cramping that style. Yeah, I don't know. I think it led to a lot of rejection of myself and who I am. Like I just remember thinking, I don't want to be Asian American. I want to be a normal kid. But I don't know. I don't know what's to be like. One thing obviously is just making our media more diverse, having more shows about Asian people. I don't know if there's anything my parents could have done about that, like maybe talk to me more about it. I don't know. I don't want to put that on my parents. That's like a very tough thing to do, is like figure out help your son with his identity. But yeah, there was that. And it's interesting because most of the schools that I've gone to have majority Asian populations, and I think there was always a part of me that, like, I don't know, just like flat out hated other Asian people, hated myself for being Asian. As like, hate is a very strong word, but like, I don't think I would ever admit to myself that I hate them, but it was definitely, there was something there where I would look at myself in a mirror, and part of it would not be accepting of the way I looked. I think I took that out on other people who look similar to me, at least, you know, in terms of race, where it would be like, why are all these Asian people like acting this way and like making us look bad? You know what I mean? Like, which is such a like stupid and silly thing to think. But like I said, I was having a hard time with my identity, right? A lot of the schools I went to had big Asian populations, and I would just sort of not want to associate with them, you know? I have a lot of Asian friends, and to the Asian friends I have watching, I'm very glad to be friends with you. I don't hate you guys. You guys are some awesome friends. But I remember, like, in middle school and even high school, I would be like, I don't want to be one of those people who has like a friend group that is just Asian people, you know? Because then I feel like people look at you a certain way when that happens. They're like, oh, this guy is just, you know, his whole friend group's Asian. This guy's like, oh, a full-blooded Asian. And I didn't want that to happen. I think even now I'm probably struggling with that. Like I said, love all my Asian homies out there. Glad we're friends. Wouldn't trade you guys for anything in the world. But I think a part of me does not want to be labeled and like put in this box that, oh, this guy's just, you know, he's friends with like 10 Asian people. This guy, all his friends are Asian. You know, this guy's just Asian. And be defined by that. And that's rough, you know? I don't think that's a healthy mindset for myself to have, especially because then that mindset is basically out of fear of white people. Let's just call a spade. I am trying to be friends with more white people, is what I'm trying to say, in high school and middle school. And even now I'm struggling with that. And it's not like a conscious thing, you know? I think it's just, like I said, I think the default thing for people is like to label Asian people as defined by that and like give them a stereotype that, oh, like they're quiet, they're this, they're that. And unless you show that you're not, they're going to assume that's the way you are. At least that's my view of people's perceptions of Asian Americans. So I think that's something I have to work on, you know? There's a lot of self-hate going on there. And it's not anyone's, you know, it's not any Asian American's fault that they're Asian American. And there's no reason why I shouldn't be friends with them or prefer to be friends with someone over someone else. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm just the only one who struggles with that. But I think what I'm trying to say is I make an effort to not... I made an effort, and I'm still struggling with this, making an effort to not be super Asian, whatever that means, because I don't want people to label me that way. Yeah. I don't think Asian people basically just have to prove that they're not quiet and going to be pushed around and are interesting people, I think. I think Asian people are probably stereotyped as the least interesting race. I don't know. That might be a controversial opinion. But, yeah, I think because you see an Asian person and you're like, oh, he's quiet and boring and likes math. Those are some fucking boring traits. Those are not cool stereotypes, you know? Yeah, maybe being good at math is going to make us be better doctors. But being a doctor is not that cool. So, I don't know. I think that's something I struggle with. I think a lot of Asian people might struggle with that. Is just how to accept ourselves. Because, in a way, like, being Asian, that doesn't mean anything, you know? Being any race doesn't really mean anything except your skin color. But in our society, we define a lot of things to that. And culture is important, of course. But I'm saying, like, in terms of what you can do and who you are, while your culture is a part of you, it's not who you are. And it doesn't confine the path that you can take. So, there's that. To any Asian person listening, if you feel the same way that I just ranted about, you're not alone. And if you don't, I'm sorry that I struggle with hating myself. And I don't hate you for being Asian. It's just more an indictment of myself is what I'm trying to say. It's really just something I need to work on personally is, that. Yeah, I don't know, like a meme joke. A meme, not mean, meme, M-E-M-E joke that my friends make is that, oh, haha, only likes white girls and he doesn't like Asian girls, haha. I feel like part of that reason is because I hate myself. I hate myself for being Asian, so that I don't want to be with an Asian girl and then be like stereotyped as like, oh, like he's Asian, so he got with an Asian girl. So they're just super Asian. I feel like that's a thing. Because a lot of Asian people date other Asian people. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, like I said, there's a lot of struggles with identity going on here. And I feel like a part of that is I don't want to be seen as the standard Asian guy who dates another Asian person. Even though that should really have no bearing at all on who I decide to date and not. I gotta work on my life, really, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so last thing, sort of thing I want to talk about is whether Asian people count as people of color. And the obvious thing you might be saying is, of course Asian people are people of color. But to be honest, I didn't realize that we counted as people of color until people started saying Asian people are people of color, like on Twitter and stuff. I was like, oh wait, like we're people of color? Because I think at least in New York, there's a couple of reasons why. One of the reasons why is because in New York, there's this big protest happening over whether the specialized high schools should change their way of admission, the SHSAT, because basically a lot of Asian people get in because they fucking study for this test, and there's question about whether or not it's discriminatory towards other minorities like black people and Hispanic people. The facts show that like 80% of the people who get into these schools are Asian. I don't want to get into the politics of whether or not the SHSAT is good or not, but they say whenever they count like whether or not these schools have enough diversity, they say minorities except Asian Americans. So that was a big thing growing up for me. And I think a lot of things in America, they do that, right? Because when they talk about like jobs and stuff, they're like, oh, minorities except Asian Americans are doing really bad. So the fact that we were always excluded from these because we were doing well in terms of like professions and stuff always made me assume like, oh, so we don't count as like minorities then because like we're doing good. And I understand why they don't put us in those statistics, right? Because whatever, it's very complicated. Like I said, I don't want to get into the politics of that, but that's just what I thought from seeing those statistics, right? We're always excluded from them, so I was like, oh, so you're saying we're not minorities. Cool, got it. Then people started saying Asian people are minorities. I guess we are. I don't really have an opinion on that, but it's interesting, right? I think also another thing is that I've never had overt racism about being Asian except once. So this is the story. Once me and my friends were like going to a track meet in Yonkers, I think, in New York. And like this lady who was just on the street started yelling at us about like, go back to China, stop bringing like AIDS to America, and like you yellow motherfuckers or something. And we were just sort of like, oh, that's weird. This was like an old lady too. It wasn't like, I don't know. It was weird. But that was the only time I've ever had like overt racism towards me. And I sort of just brushed that off, I guess. And I was like 16 at the time, so it wasn't like a traumatic initial memory of myself, of my life. So yeah, I think also the fact that Asian Americans get less overt racism than other races. I could be wrong about that. At least in my experience, I haven't experienced that much overt racism. I'm sure a lot of Asian Americans get overt racism. I'm not trying to say that doesn't happen, but I think generally people assume Asian Americans get less racism than other races. And that might be changing with the whole coronavirus thing, but like I said, growing up, I didn't experience that much overt racism. Again, not trying to discredit anyone who has experienced overt racism as an Asian American, but yeah, that's, I think, why, for me, I struggle with the fact that Asian people count as people of color, I think. And I think that is a distinction, right? Whether or not... Because I think a big thing in America is whether or not Asian people... I don't know, at least for me, it seems like a big question whether or not Asian people experience... Are we good enough? Like, do we not need help from anyone anymore? Or what's the deal? Because, like, you know, they're trying to change the SHSAT because too many Asian people get into the schools, basically, and not enough other minorities. So that's saying Asian people are already doing good enough, so let's get some other minorities in here. Or are we people of color who still need help and all of that? I don't know. That's a question. That's a really loaded question. Let's not get into that here. But yeah, that's the question. I don't know. There's a lot of there to unpack. I'll probably make another episode about this. But I think let's just sum it up. Like, as an Asian American, there's a lot of fucking questions about identity to unpack and try and figure out. And yeah, I think for me, a big part of that was figuring out on my own, because I didn't have TV shows to teach me about that. I didn't have movies to teach me about that. My parents didn't really talk to me about what it's like to be Asian American in America and struggle with wanting to fit in with all the white kids, because they never went through that. They never experienced that themselves. And I think that's a fact with a lot of Asian Americans, because a lot of Asian American kids, their parents are first generation immigrants. So they're sort of the first ones braving this new world of having to grow up in America as a different race and find your place in the world. And I think that can be really tough for kids, I know I had a hard time with it, and my heart goes out to all the Asian kids currently struggling with it. I think a big thing that helped me was having friends who are Asian American who I could relate to. So like I said, I don't hate having Asian American friends. I love all my Asian American homies. I think a big part of getting through that is having Asian American friends and having someone who shares that experience with. Then again, I know a lot of Asian American people might be the only Asian American people in their community or area, which is also rough. I think that's why it's important for family to sort of kick in there. I think, yeah, I don't know. It was a struggle, but I think it's made me into a better person, and hopefully the struggles have made other Asian Americans into better people. I think for me, definitely, I want to be able to help my kids out with their identity there and being Asian American. I think it's just talking about it. I think it's just acknowledging the fact that, hey, it's rough not knowing your place in the world, especially when you don't look like the people in the Disney shows, and all your friends are different than you, and you want to be like them. I think that's that just talking about it is one of the best ways to address those problems and get them out in the open. Because I think for a long time for me, I was just thinking about it in my head, and I didn't even know that I was thinking about it. You know what I mean? I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that this was an identity issue problem I was having. I didn't know to call it a struggle with identity. I just was fuck being Asian American. I don't know why I feel this way, but fuck this. So I think just acknowledging it is half the battle. Hopefully this video and talking about it, if you're Asian American, you can relate and have that, know that you're not alone out there and feeling however you feel. And if you don't agree with whatever I say or have a different experience, that's totally valid too, There's no one way to experience life. There's no one anything, I just want to put my own experiences out there in case anyone feels the same way or can relate and wants to talk about it. So, yeah, let's not die at the end of this episode. Hey, so this was another episode of Minecraft Therapy. As always, smash that like button, obliterate that subscribe button, and leave a comment about the last time your parents made you cry. Yeah. All right, everyone. Stay safe. Stay sane. Hope you all doing well. Thank you for watching so much. And I'll catch y'all on the other side. All right. Peace.